Okay, in this this tutorial, I want to do a couple things. One is review a little bit of the auto layout ideas and this new absolute position option that you have within auto layout. But the main thing I want to look at is doing these attaching overlays. So I'm going to build components like this based on the Mac iOS, or no, the iOS library that I've linked to, and what's going to happen is we're going to simulate. You can make it more complex on this, but in its most basic form, kind of Wizard of Oz, you can simulate filling in these fields, and then a tooltip. So this is what it will look like when you're done. So here is it's just a single frame. Has a starting point here, so you can name your starting points. And what you'll end up with is, what we will end up with is this. So what will happen is the tooltip will attach to the frame when the page loads, and you can close it. And then if you click on these, what it does is it fills in the information there. That's it. So just want to quickly show how you can do that, and it's by attaching overlays. This is a prototyping technique that you can do in Figma. So first of all, again, I want to show you how I want to do this. I want to just double check this here, what I did on here, on click. Okay, good. So this is what it looks like. We have this, and I've put borders around it just to make it a little bit clearer for what's going on. This is a tooltip pop-up that I've created, and it's made up of a whole bunch of nested auto layout frames. So in here we have, and I'm just going to pull this out so you can see it. This is a auto layout frame called header, and it has two parts to it. One is the nav counter, and the other is this text label. So all this does is, if I have a tooltip that has multiple frames and I want to be able to go to the next one, like around like a in-app tutorial, I can add a little counter in there. But what I do is I can just hide that because I'm not actually using it in this case. And then there is the tip itself right here. So text. I'm not using the rest of this, but it could have multiple fields to it, keeping it pretty simple. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add these other components to it. So again, auto layout. You add auto layout by excuse me, choosing a frame. Choosing a frame. You have a frame, and you select auto layout. Pretty simple, but what it does, auto layout allows the layout to be responsive to the content that you put inside. So it can expand and contract depending on what you have inside. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to add this on the left-hand side. I want this to float up here, and I want this header to sit on top. So in order to do that, I can just take this header and just drag it down here inside the pop-up. So right above the text fields, right there, and it'll sit right there above there. Actually, I'm going to drag it down into here because I don't want that space in between. Oh, no. If you go here, right here, right here. There we go. Yes. So don't need the space in between. And here's this other text object below. And if I select this tip frame, you can see I have controls over it to control the space in between. So I can just expand this or contract this. And again, I'm working in units of 4. So here I have 4, the space in between. I'm just going to remove this. I'm going to leave it on for now. I'm going to leave it on the borders for now, just to make it clear. Can take this. So I got these icons from a library that is called, and you need to download it and install it, but it's very powerful. It is the San Francisco icons that are used in the Mac OS. So this is very large set of icons, pictograms that are all for using in iOS, and they're styled to fit with the San Francisco font. So it's a great library source. You can actually search it. So you can actually search for clothes, and it gives you a bunch of options. This is where I got this one. So you can just go right click on it and copy image as. And one of the awesome things about it is you can download it as an SVG or a PNG. So obviously SVG is a scalable vector graphic. So that allows you to infinitely scale, and it's very small in size. PNG is obviously raster sized, and so you can't scale it infinitely. They both have their uses, but Figma supports both, so you can just download it and then drag it right into here. And what it does is it creates when you drag it into here, it'll make the vector objects are joined together into a group, and there's a frame around it that has the name of the icon from here, from the San Francisco Pro XD library. So again, this is a library that you need to download and install. It's like actually an application that runs. And the thing that I love about working with this is that it's 4,400 glyphs that are all styled to fit together along with a typeface. And so for wireframing, it's excellent because it is very, cohesive. So nothing's going to really stand out. It's going to feel natural, and it's going to feel like it's a native app, like the graphic language. So it's not going to feel like it's been styled in any particular way. I think they're beautiful, but they're very unobtrusive. So they're not going to, they're not going to. Most often, you just won't notice it, and by you I mean your users. So what I can do is I can just drag this down into my pop-up as well, and I'm going to want it to sit right beside the text field. So I'm going to want to put it in here. So I can just drag this mic and put it right here beside the text field. No, I need it to go right here. There we go. So it's going to sit inside there, and it's part of, it's communicating what this is about, that the text fields are voice activated, so you can just talk to them. And the other thing I want in this, two more things I want a close button. So I'm just going to drag this in here as well. So it's going to sit here on top. But what I want to do is use this new feature with Figma where your auto layout frames can have absolutely positioned items. So if I click on this, automatically the frame stops adjusting to make space for it, and I can just drag this wherever I want within the frame, and it will sit in here. So I just want to drag it right here. I'm going to have it a little bit over here. And so I'll have that close button, and so I can use this to close the frame. And then I want this other little pointer to point to the place in the interface that I want to draw attention to, so where the tip actually applies. So I'm going to drag this into the tooltip frame, put it in here, and this is already set to absolute position, but I'm going to go ahead and set it to absolute position. It was already set. That's why it was moving. And I can just drag this down to the bottom here and put it about right here. And that'll allow me to point directly to the, okay, that didn't quite work. I'm not sure why, but there we go. Now it's absolutely positioned, and I'm just going to drag it down here. Oh, it's popping out. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use my cursor to move it down so it doesn't move out of the frame. There we go. And so that is a little widget. And again, it's made with auto layout. So that means I can expand this copy. I can add things and automatically adjust and keep these negative space ideas that are important for consistency between all my elements. So I'm going to leave the borders on, but if I turn the borders off, it'll look like this. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I actually want to create one of these. So I'm just going to copy this. So this is an element that I copied from here. Copied this from this iOS library, and I'm going to link to this in the along with the tutorial. And what this gives you is it gives you this like set of components that are aligned with the human interface guidelines. And you know, they're very unstyled, so they're going to look very default, but it gives you a nice base. You can make changes to it, but you'll see one of the nice things about it is all of the components are set in San Francisco Pro text. So that'll be a nice typeface that isn't going to draw attention. So it's going to allow you to really test your the function of your wireframes. And then it has all these tab bars and toolbars with icons. So it has a placeholder for an icon, and you can actually go ahead and copy this into your Figma file. That's what I prefer to do. Instead of sharing the library, which is very large and gets a little bit unwieldy, it's a little bit hard to get used to at the beginning, but you can copy the elements that you need and paste them into your Figma file, and then just go to, I'm going to just demonstrate how to do this. I'm going to go and grab one of these. I'm going to copy it. You know what? You can actually grab the title as well and the description. So you can grab all of this here, copy, and go here and paste it in here. And then what will happen is, what you want to do in order to really simplify it, because right now what happens if you try and make changes to this, you can change the content, but you can't change the formatting. So if you actually want to, change a little bit of the formatting to simplify it, when you try and do that, you're going to go to the main component. It'll take you back to the iOS 16 library. So a simpler way to do it is just to detach instance, and you'll have to do that with the pieces inside too. So detach instance, and you do that with all the pieces inside. Just detach the instances until you end up with this basically flat component that you can make your own component. So you can just go up here and make that your own, and that way it's not going to be constantly linking back to this iOS 16 library. So that's how I created these here. All I did was I swapped out the arrow for this mic. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it here. Oh, pasted it inside there. I can just drag this out. So what I want to do is when somebody clicks on here, I just want to fill in their email address. So I'm going to use my email address, andrew.mckinley@sweetsoul.ca, and when it's complete, the idea is that then it's going to be black. And so all I want to do is when somebody clicks on here, it just looks like they filled it in. And so I'm going to give this a unique name. So I'm going to call this put field email complete. Let's make sure I don't get confused with this one. Oh, that's called email. Okay. So this is still a component, which is great. The other one I had completely flattened. So when somebody clicks on here, I want to load this, and I could do the same with this one too. But now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to prototype it by clicking on prototype. Let's make a new flow starting point. So this is called load overlay. Load overlay demo. And so what I want to do is when this page loads, I want to load this. So I'm going to add an interaction, and I'm going to go here after delay. So the page is going to load. There's going to be a delay. So you could make this delay up to, you could make it a very long delay. I'm going to make it as small as I can, which is 1 millisecond. You won't even notice it. So after a delay, we're going to open this overlay, and it's going to be email complete. Oh no, wrong one. It's going to be, I'm going to have to rename this one. Tooltip vertical. Very important to make sure that your frames are named to make it easy to prototype. If you're still calling things, you know, iPhone X frame, it's going to be hard to do the prototyping. You won't, doing all the links, it's going to be harder. So tooltip vertical, I'm going to call this demo, just to differentiate from the other one. Okay, now I go back here, after delay, email complete. I actually don't want to load this one. On delay, I want to actually load, oh yeah, I want to load this one here. And here you can see I have these options here. So I can load it into the center of the frame. I can load it into the side, the top, or I can do manual. So manual, super powerful. What it lets me do is it lets me drag it down to the place where I want it to point to. So I want it to point to the microphone. And one thing I forgot to do is I forgot to turn off this tooltip counter. So I can just go in here, go to the tooltip counter, and I'm going to actually turn off the counter here. Okay, so that will load this tooltip after a delay of 1 millisecond. The next thing I want to do is I want to be able to close it. So I can just select this button here, this frame, and I go into prototype, on click, close overlay. So it's already set because I had it on the other one. So this will close the overlay. I'm going to actually delete that and do it again. So here I've selected this frame here, on interaction, on click. I'm going to go close overlay. Okay, so that will load on, when I load the page, this will load up, and I'm going to leave the borders on just so I'm super clear that this is not this one that I built before, but the new one. And now what I want to do is I want to change this so that when somebody clicks on this field, it's like their cursor is entering in there. And again, there's ways you can make it even more realistic, but this is just a very simple way of doing it. When they click in there, it fills up with their name. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this and again go interactions. Going to add an interaction on click. I'm going to open overlay, and this is going to be email complete. And what we'll do is we'll see where that loads. See, because I haven't set anything. I think by default it is set to, let's see. By default it is set to be centered. So the idea is that it would be centered inside this frame. We'll see if that works. So I'm going to go ahead and try this prototype out. So you can see that it loaded this tooltip right here. I can close it, and when I click on email, it's not loading in the right place. So it's loading it into the center of the larger frame. So let's change that. I'm just going to go back here, click on email, complete, and here where it says, I'm going to open this overlay, and here's my options for how I want to, where I want to load this overlay. So I can do in the center of this larger frame. I can do off to the side. I want to do manual because I want it to load right inside this frame here. So by default, manual is going to be inside the frame that you're clicking in. The other thing I want to add too is that here on this one, interaction. So when this page loads, so I'm selecting the main frame. When this page loads on a delay, it's going to load this tooltip. What I want people to be able to do too is close it when clicking outside of the overlay. So let's take a quick look at that. A nice little addition to it. Let's go ahead and load that. Let's restart this. restart. So on restart, it loads this tooltip. I'm going to click. So when I click outside, it's going to close it. And when I click here, it loads the name. And then obviously I can prototype all the rest of these elements. Super important once you start prototyping, you kind of need all your elements in place. You can go back and change them. So if you're working with components, you can go back and update one component, and it'll update the formatting of all of them without, of course, changing the content, because that's the beautiful thing about components. Components are formatting and elements and function, and then the instances of each component is content independent of the master, of the main component. So that's it. So I hope that you found that helpful. Let me know, and I'll see you on the next one.